Because the scene has got a little bit darker, I'm also going to increase the light on the first person controller, which is parented to the camera. So if we find the first person controller camera and this spotlight, you see that the intensity is 2. I'm just going to increase that to 2.5, and I'm also going to change this colour slightly by pushing it slightly up into a lighter value. Okay, so the hexadecimal code for that is B08C6A. Okay, and that should improve that flashlight experience. It was a little bit too dark for my liking. Okay, so the visuals are pretty much complete. It's now, I think, important to kind of optimize this level a little bit. Now obviously there's loads and loads of elements in the hierarchy. Okay, so most games wouldn't, you know, just have one level and put everything in there. They would actually separate it into smaller bits. But as computers are becoming more sophisticated, they can handle this amount of geometry. However, what's happening at the moment is wherever the camera is looking, and currently it's looking in that direction, it's only rendering the geometry that it's seeing. Okay, so if it's looking that way, it's not rendering this geometry or this geometry behind it. However, it is rendering pretty much everything in that direction. So even if, let's say, we are stood in front of this church and we can't see anything behind it, the camera is still rendering everything behind it. So what we're going to do is we're going to use a technique called occlusion culling. This is going to ensure that whatever the camera cannot see doesn't get rendered, and hopefully this should free up a little bit of frames per second, some frame rate. Okay, so to do that we're just going to click on the terrain. We're going to go to Window, Rendering and Occlusion Culling. Okay. And we do have to bake this. Now before we actually bake it, we just have to ensure that everything that we want to be baked under the occlusion is actually marked as static. So we will see that our terrain is not marked as static, so let's just do that now. Let's just mark it as static. Let's just find a specific building. Okay, brick house mid is marked as static, so it's got it checked. The church is not marked as static. That's interesting. So, oh, actually, that's a sound that I've clicked on there. Okay, ensure that you're clicking on geometry. So it is marked as static, which is good. So just double check that everything on the map is marked as static. Now I can see that that one is not. So I'm just going to mark that one as static. Ah, okay, so some of these rocks are also not marked as static either. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click right at the top of the list, go all the way down to the bottom of the list, down to blocker cube for now. And whoa, that's everything. Okay, so it's really slowed my computer down now because I've got everything selected. Okay, I think I should have gone the other way, which I will do. So I'll click on blocker cube all the way to the top, click right at the very top and just uncheck FPS controller. Okay, so that's not selected. Okay, with all that, I'm now going to check static. Do you want to enable the static flags for all the child objects as well? Yeah, we'll do it for everything. And that way we ensure that everything is static. We're also going to do the same for everything that's in my assets as well, including the fog particles, and we're just going to mark all of those as static. Great. So now when we come over to our occlusion culling, it's going to recognize that everything that's marked as static should be baked into the data, so that when the camera is looking forward, it recognizes what it can see and what it doesn't, and so that only what it sees gets rendered. It may take a while for this to render actually. We should be able to visually see what it's doing. So if I now click bake, it will begin baking. Okay, so we can see it starting there. So it goes all throughout the map, creating these little blue boxes around everything, and it saves it all to a data file.